I know why you're here. You want to build a gaming PC, but you only have $350. Well, you're in luck. We can make that work. We've been building affordable gaming budget PCs on this channel for many years now. So let's go over all the components you'll need and how to get them to build this powerful and good looking gaming PC that won't hurt your wallet right after this video sponsor.
This is the Ugreen Nexode 100 watt charger, an incredibly portable and quick charging beast that can charge a MacBook Air M2 from dead to 55% in less than 30 minutes. The charger comes equipped with 3 USB-C ports and a single USB-A port, all while only taking up a single one-wall plug socket. Despite being so portable, this GAN charger is not a slouch. Utilizing up to 100 watts of power, you're able to charge all of your devices super fast. I love using it when traveling to help charge my phone, laptop, camera, tablet, and anything else we need to get back out there quickly. And when I'm not at the hotel, I can bring the Ugreen Nexode Power Bank 25,000 mAh 145 watts, which is safe to fly on any airline, able to keep my devices topped off when I'm not near a plug, and gives me the peace of mind having it in my bag, knowing that at any moment I can have my phone start charging. So check out Ugreen Prime Day deals and get up to 41% off starting now until July 21st by checking out the links in the video description. And thanks again to Ugreen for sponsoring this video.
Now, as always, my disclaimer for this video is that I'm located in the USA, buying all these parts from online retailers, and that prices will change day to day. So one day this config might be a little cheaper, one day it might be a little bit more expensive. I can't control what retailers charge for their products, and you probably aren't even located in the USA realistically, so just keep an eye out for sales and use this video as a jumping off point or to get some ideas for your next budget gaming rig. And everything I'll be mentioning in this video will be down in the video description if you want to pick it up for yourself. But to start this gaming PC, I wanted a good foundation. And as always, something that could be possibly upgraded down the line would be absolutely preferable. The LGA 1700 chipset is always a favorable choice as it can handle Intel's 12th, 13th, and 14th generation of processors, and AM4 is always a good choice as well since they're still making AM4 processors even to this day. So the idea is that if you buy an AM4 motherboard now with a more budget processor, when you are ready to upgrade the PC in the near future, you have a lot of options of powerful CPUs to choose from that you can just slide into your current motherboard and not have to completely change out your entire system. Now obviously, DDR4 is last generation at this point, but it's still kicking strong and it gives great performance on modern games. And at this price range, we can't realistically expect to get a good system utilizing DDR5 anyway. So I eventually found this really great combo off of Aliexpress. It's another one of those motherboard, CPU, and RAM bundles all together for one low price. And while these are usually utilizing cheap server processors from 10 plus years ago, this is actually an AM4 board and CPU, meaning we can easily upgrade it down the line. This combo comes with an A320 motherboard from a manufacturer called KLLISRE. Weird name, but the price is right. The A320 chipset realistically won't be good enough to slot in something like a 5800X3D in the future, but can handle a lot of AM4 CPUs as long as you don't go too overboard or expect too much from a motherboard this low priced. Now it has what you would expect from an A320 motherboard. Only 2 DIMM slots for RAM, a single M.2 NVMe Gen 3 slot, and it has 4 SATA slots so you can expand your storage with some hard drives if you desire. So this thing won't be overclocking anything or cranking 90s or whatever, but it will help us play games in 1080p at some really respectable frame rates for a super low price. The bundle also came with 2 sticks of DDR4 RAM, totaling out to 16 gigs total, clocked at 3200 megatransfers per second. And they come from the same brand as the motherboard, so nothing special here, just RAM. Should work fine in this build, but I am glad that it has a heatsink on it and that it is mostly monotone. A lot of these cheap RAM sticks like to come in funky colors and designs and they stick out like a sore thumb, so great to see that this one is relatively normal. And finally, the processor provided in this little bundle is the Ryzen 5 2600, which was a real fan favorite CPU when it first came out, as it provided some fantastic price to performance even on launch. The 2600 was originally released in 2018, has a total of 6 cores and 12 threads, with a max boost clock of up to 3.9 gigahertz. So it's absolutely not a slouch and will run circles around most of the X79 processors on AliExpress, and while being much more power efficient. The Ryzen 2600 is enough CPU for a lot of modern 1080p gaming, day-to-day computing, streaming, and schoolwork. So yes, these parts may not be brand new or able to overclock or anything, but price to performance for what you get here is pretty crazy. I bought this during their anniversary sale and was able to pick up the combo for only $95, but I've seen it hovering around $100 to $110 since then, which is still a really good deal. If you can, try to find a better deal in your local marketplace for some similar components or even better. So maybe like a B450 motherboard from a brand you actually recognize, a Ryzen CPU, and some RAM. I really recommend looking local for a great deal, but AliExpress is an easy and readily available resource that anyone can purchase from for some low prices. And if something is broken or doesn't show up, AliExpress will refund you, and they do free and easy returns, so you have nothing to worry about. Now, the bundle didn't come with a cooler for the CPU, unfortunately, and while I could just buy a used Ryzen AM4 stock cooler on eBay for a few dollars, I went ahead and picked up this Thermalright Assassin K on Amazon for a little more. It's better cooling than the stock cooler, and it's going to look a lot better, as well as add more RGB to our computer, thus making this budget build look a little less budget. And of course, we needed a case to put these components in, and it's really hard to find cases that are below $50 these days. Well, at least cases that aren't complete crap. So I always recommend waiting for a flash sale of some random case you can find on Reddit. Like once a month, some budget case maker will just drop one of their cases down to 35 or 40 bucks. And while they aren't, premium quality, they are good enough to hold up long term, and they often come with fans too. This is the approach I took, and I was able to find this case. This is the Aris Game ATM1, which is an all-black ATX mid-tower case that I found on sale for only $34. And while it's not the greatest case of all time, it's certainly pretty good for the low price of 34 bucks shipped to my door. It has a mesh front panel for better airflow and enough room for an AIO if you want to go that route. The downsides are that this side panel is made of acrylic instead of tempered glass, so it just feels cheap and can get scratched pretty easily. Very little room for cable management in the back, and it only came with a single case fan powered by Molex, so we've seen better case deals on this channel, but I like to give every case a shot. For $34, I'm not really complaining, but at the non-sale price of $53, I would probably not buy this. There are way better cases at this price. And like I said, it only came with a single fan, and honestly, just running a single exhaust in the back would probably be enough to prevent overheating in this specific build, but it's not really the best practice when cooling your PC, and it would look pretty ugly. So I picked up 3 RGB fans from Thermalright for 12 bucks. That should help with our airflow quite a bit, and the RGB will make the PC all shiny, and we like that. I configured 2 of the fans in the front for intake and 1 in the back for exhaust, and I just kept the provided one for later use. Now, the storage I got for this PC is another deal that probably won't be easily replicated unless you are really on the ball for sales, so I'll provide a few alternatives as well. I wanted to grab an M.2 NVMe drive for this build, and I didn't really care if it was Gen 3 or 4 as they're backwards compatible, but as long as the price was right and the speeds were acceptable, I would be pretty happy. Eventually, I landed on this SSD from Kingston, the 1TB NV2. It's a PCIe 4.0 drive with speeds up to 3,500 megabytes a second, and while this drive isn't winning any awards, it's a solid drive for a budget build. There was a sale a few weeks ago on Amazon where these drives were going for only $32 each, which is a great price for a terabyte of NVMe storage at this time. But the drives are otherwise going for like almost $60 each when they aren't on sale, and I don't really think that it's worth it at that price. A good alternative would be the 500 gig Crucial P3, which is an absolute solid Gen 3 drive that will last you a long time, or for $5 more you can grab the P3 Plus, which essentially ups the drive to Gen 4 speeds. And while a Gen 4 SSD will work in a Gen 3 slot, you're only going to get speeds as fast as Gen 3 would allow. So go ahead and buy a Gen 4 drive if the price is right, but don't think you can get, 10,000 megabytes per second in this A320 board. It's not gonna happen. But realistically, no matter what SSD you pick, it's not really going to affect your gaming performance, so don't overthink it too much. As for the power supply, it's the tried and true, baby. The MSI Mag A550BN, a bronze-rated power supply that is non-modular, but is rated well on the PSU tier list for the price. So it will safely provide enough power for your PC and any upgrades you decide to get down the line. Big bonus of using this MSI one over other popular power supplies in this price range is that the cables are all black, which just gives the PC a much more premium look when compared to the ketchup and mustard cables of other power supplies. Now, that's not a dig at their quality or anything, it's purely for aesthetics, but if you don't like the way the cables look, you can always add PSU extensions in a wide range of colors for less than $20, and it's a fun and easy way to completely customize the look of your PC. But for today, we're just sticking to the standard black cables on the power supply. And last, but certainly not least, we need a graphics card. The Ryzen 5 2600 can push a lot of graphics cards for sure, but this is a budget build after all, so we need to be reasonable on this budget. I think the usual suspects would be something like an RX 580 or a 5700 XT, both of which are fantastic cards. But I wanted to go Team Green for this build just for fun, and I ultimately grabbed this GTX 1080 used online. The 1080 was kind of overshadowed by its more popular big brother, the 1080 Ti, but it was and still is a great card that is capable of some really fantastic performance. In today's day and age, the 1080 only having 8 gigs of VRAM makes it feel more like a 1070 instead of like a true next level power increase, whereas the 1080 Ti had 11 gigs of VRAM, and that was in 2017 when 8 gigs of VRAM was still enough for most games. Nonetheless, this is a budget build. We're going to be playing mostly in 1080p realistically, so having 8 gigs of VRAM on a pretty powerful card is going to be great for our use case and push the CPU to its limits. I got this GPU used online for about $100, but if you want a slight upgrade, you can try to find a used 5700 XT for a little more, or even push your luck with an RTX 3060. Now let's check out this build in some glamour shots and go over the benchmarks to see how it performs, then back here for some final thoughts and how to make the most of this rig. Wait, hold on. You didn't think it was going to be that easy, did you? While the components did all seem to work, I kept getting a black screen on the computer when trying to boot. And after testing every single component and cable to try to find the defect, I finally realized that this singular USB front panel connector from my case, when plugged in, was causing the computer to short out and not boot. When it's left out, the computer works fine. I don't think all Ares game cases are like this, obviously. It's probably just mine that has a defect, but it means I'll either need to return the case for a new one or just live with not having a USB port working on my front panel. Also, there are no RGB headers on this motherboard, as is the case with most budget boards, so if you want to get RGB working, you'll need to buy a cheap SATA to ARGB controller on Amazon for like $7, or a few more if you want to control it with a remote. This will basically allow your RGB to have power and choose different colors, but the fans will still operate without it, so if you aren't running RGB, you can skip this step entirely. And of course, the BIOS of the motherboard came in Chinese, which could be a real hindrance to most people, but I'm able to understand it, so it wasn't that big of a deal. If your board ends up being in Chinese, just look for this section here, hit enter, and change it to English. It will work just fine after that. Okay, let's finally get to those glamour shots and benchmarks. I really love this PC, and I think it ran pretty great in all the games we tested. Quick note about these numbers. While doing benchmarks, I will generally not use any kind of helper software to help boost the frame rate, so it's just so you can get an idea of the raw data. But that doesn't mean I don't encourage the use of them if you end up building a really budget gaming PC. Things like resolution scaling, FSR, DLSS, frame generation, they're all really easy ways to make cheap PCs get massive spikes in FPS. So be sure to play around with the settings and find a happy medium for your gaming pleasure. Just because the benchmark in some video said Cyberpunk ran at 60 FPS doesn't mean you necessarily will. You can easily turn on DLSS or FSR and bump the frame rate a considerable amount, maybe even to 90 or 100 FPS with little to no noticeable difference in the image quality. So remember to make use of these technologies while playing, even if they aren't displayed in the benchmarks. But for $350, I think this PC will last you a long time for gaming, video editing, schoolwork, or basically any other task you need it for. If you have a little bit more budget and you want to see how far your dollar can be stretched in a gaming PC, check out these two videos here where I build really impressive computers for the price and I give full breakdowns on where to get all the components. My name is Jason. Thanks for watching.